welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another D3D4 Football Podcast, the podcast covering League 1 and 2 only. It's been a very eventful and quite a sad, poignant week for football in general. Obviously, with Bury being kicked out of the EFL and all their attempts, it appears, to have that rescinded failing. Some shenanigans being reported by journalists about what the EFL have been doing, how they've been treating them since then. Just suggests that organisation is as bad as we've been making out. I mean, these are unconfirmed reports, but it does seem to come from several different sources. So it looks pretty solid that that's what's been happening. But we did have a frank and open discussion about the situation at Bury and them losing their place. That was on a podcast extra, which you can hear. It's available on all our feeds and on the website as well. So go and have a listen to that. This week, we're delighted to be joined by Gareth from the WiseMenSay Podcast crew. Gareth, welcome to D3D4 Football.
Thank you for having me. It's an honour.
We've caught you at a perfect time after a thumping away defeat, it seems.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? As the goals were flying in, I was thinking, I wonder if I could be ill tomorrow morning or something like that. But no, you've got it. Unlike goals on Sunday where like a manager's due to go on and then they get beaten 7-0 and then they don't go on. Yeah. It was a bit disappointing. I was hoping we'd come, a draw would have been, I would have been happy with that because obviously last season we had all those 1-1s and it's kind of a bit of a cliche now that we need to convert them into victories, and felt as though at the start of this season, some of the games we played are games where we probably would have been 1-1. And then it was like, well, we've kind of got over that a little bit, and to go to Peterborough and get a draw, especially now we've got a break next week, would have been, we get through that period of the season unbeaten. We've played three of the teams who are going to be near the top of the league at the end of the season, you would have thought. And we'll be undefeated. But obviously the manner of the defeats meant that, there's been a bit of negativity flying about, shall we say.
What, from Sunderland fans? No.
Never.
I can't imagine that after a 3-0 defeat, but we'll come to that shortly. We will be covering all of the action. As always, a bit of a thriller. My heart has not yet recovered from that, between Oxford and Coventry. Ipswich going strong, beating Shrewsbury. Lincoln, in what was a pretty good and even game against Fleetwood, coming out on top in a 2-0 win. At least we're not Southend fans. That's something for all of us to think about after their 3-0 home defeat to Rochdale. In League 2, Exeter continued to play brilliant football, a comfortable 1-0 win, or as comfortable as a 1-0 win can ever be, but they beat Mansfield. Crewe beat Bradford, proving that Crewe are still a side that are proving people wrong and are improving each week. Swindon going strong, they beat Morecambe. Grimsby, wonderful start to their season, continued at Walsall. Northampton finally got going, they beat Plymouth in an impressive 3-1 win. And this is not a mistake, Stevenage have scored a goal. In fact, they scored two in the same game, but they still could not pick up their first win of the season in a 2-2 draw with Macclesfield. Big shout out to Matt Beeston, who's our latest patron. Really appreciate you, Matt, coming on board with your support. If you would like to get involved in our Patreon campaign, you can do so for as little as 80p a month. You can find the link on our website and on our Twitter feed as well. Chris, you're back for another week, and it was another home defeat for Oldham this weekend for you.
Yeah, I just go expecting to lose now. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, isn't that like 20 years now you've been doing that?
Well, I've not been going 20 years, but yeah, that's about right.
It's not been a great couple of decades for Latics. So.
just the decades I've been watching.
Yeah, you kind of you missed the glory years. But never mind, eh? Right, let's jump down then and start our coverage in League 1.
League 1.
And we are going to, unfortunately, Gareth, start with your game at Peterborough. I mean, I have to say, though, Peterborough, who started the season slowly, have suddenly found this sort of renaissance of form recently. They've now scored at least twice in 4 consecutive league games for the first time since December 2017, where they went on a run of 5 games. And when you look at their squad, before we talk about Sunderland, it's not a surprise that they are finding the net. They've got Ivan Toney, Mo Issa, of course, and then the wonderful talent of Marcus Maddison, who apparently Sunderland were looking at signing.
Apparently, I mean, people have been talking about Marcus Maddison in Sunderland for about 18 months, it feels like. But I don't think there's ever been a concrete link. I mean, to say that you've offered a player to somebody and they've decided not to sign them, well, that doesn't really mean anything. I mean, teams get offered lots of players. I mean, if somebody offered us Neymar, we couldn't sign him. It doesn't mean we've turned down the chance to sign Neymar. It just means we didn't sign him for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
£2.5 million, I think they were asking, weren't they, for a player who's out of contract in the summer. The question I'd be asking about Marcus Maddison is why, obviously the fees have been so inflated in the Championship recently, and this summer the spends weren't as great, and I know Ipswich last year tried to take a few players from League One, didn't they, when Paul Hurst was the manager, and it didn't really work for them. Why hasn't somebody looked at Marcus Maddison at £2.5 million in the Championship team and gone, I know, well, it's only £2.5 million, that's nothing for us, and taking a chance on him and taking him up to the higher level where, a lot of people who watch him regularly seem to believe that, he'd be good enough to play. Why is that? I mean, there's a couple of people who watched sort of League One, League Two football for a lot more frequently than I have. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer, really, because I've always thought Marcus Maddison is a Championship quality player. He's consistently producing goals and assists. I think last week we put out a stat that he had been involved in 20 goals in the last 19 appearances for Peterborough. So clearly it's not a thing about clubs being worried about his levels of consistency, which can often be the case for players at this level. I'm just wondering whether it's the fact that he's out of contract. People are just like, well, he's not going to sign a new deal. We'll just wait and we'll take our chance. So it's a strange one with Marcus Maddison. Sometimes people talk about his attitude, but that doesn't seem to have been an issue of late. I think he seems to work really hard. He's certainly in a great and rich vein of form. So, and Peterborough, I mean, they've suddenly turned it on in the last few weeks after, like I said, I saw them play against Oxford. It looked very disjointed. You could see they were uncomfortable, not quite sure what they were doing. But a draw, 3 wins in a row now, and a draw against Ipswich is pretty impressive. Obviously, beating Southend at the moment, that's like a gimme. MK Dons, though, they were dominant, beat them 4-0 and a 3-0 win against you guys yesterday. And let's talk about Sunderland, because, Gareth, you guys beat Burnley in the Cup, or, a little bit lucky early on with Vidra hitting the post when he really shouldn't have. But apart from that, you managed the game really well, and it was quite a comfortable victory over a fairly strong Premier League outfit.
I mean,
and that follows, like, your form was improving in the league as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, with the Burnley game, I mean, you forget, how quick and physical like the Premier League players are. And, they had Drinkwater and Hendrick in the middle of the park for them. I mean, we made 8 changes in that game, so they made 11, I think. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. We fall victim to that ourselves when we were in the Premier League, and it's the cliche. You put the team we selected should be good enough to beat the team from League One or whoever you play, and sometimes it was a lot more difficult than you expected. Maybe they just encountered that, but we did play well, and that was on the back of 4 other victories. Obviously, 1 in the Cup and 3 in the league. 5 victories on the bounce after a difficult, disjointed start where we tried to play a different system that hadn't really kind of worked, and then we went back to something that the players seemed more comfortable with, and we started to, get results. And then again yesterday, we're hoping, maybe that at the end of that sort of first period of fixtures with the break coming up, get out of that one, having played most of the top teams, 3 of the top teams in the league without defeat, would be thinking, yeah, great, but as I said before, it's, now, we'll lose that game in the manner of defeat means it's that the questions that were there after the first 2 games on the back of a poor end of last season. start to rear their heads again. And it's not ideal having 2 weeks off now.
No, I can imagine. I mean, Sunderland fans, obviously, you guys have a massive club, massive expectation there. I was a little bit surprised he didn't start with Will Grigg. I thought his performance against Burnley was pretty good. Good finish as well, which he very much needed. George Dobson was fantastic as well against Burnley. He's a player that we know from Walsall and that we think will go very, very far in the game. I think he'll go right to the top personally, but you've now got 2 suspensions though to deal with when you come back after the break, because obviously Luke O'Nine's, I mean, they call it a left hook. It was hardly a left hook. I mean,
He's hit the floor like a sack of spuds, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I don't even think he hit his face, to be fair. I think
it was soft.
Yeah, it was.
I'd be embarrassed to go down like that.
There's a video going around which clearly shows he just basically kind of put his arm across him. He didn't even punch him. And I mean, watching it at the time, it was like, pathetic. I mean, for the free kick, I mean, Ice's taking a dive, and Ledbetter was nowhere near him, and he's gone over, and then they've scored. The game was pretty even, up to 2-0, to be honest. We've conceded the second goal from a stupid position where we've given the ball away from our own free kick and got broken on, and the lad who scored was a good finish, to be fair, but at that point, and then we just, there's something, that we did last season a lot, and we, talk about learning, and, I think we had about 6 or 7 red cards last season. And then we've got 2 in the game. Stupid for 9 to do it. Watching it again, I wouldn't be surprised if it was rescinded and Tony gets done for deceiving a match official. I wouldn't be surprised because he has.
I think if he'd just gone down, that's one thing. But he clearly went down indicating he'd been hit in the face, which is, it's... Was it Rivaldo who did that famously when the ball hit him in the thigh?
Yeah.
I just don't get why players do it, but I mean it's silly at that point in the game where I think it was at 3-0 at that point where he got
3-0.
Yeah, and he's clearly had a bit of a temper tantrum. He's not punched him clearly, but he's gone towards him in a sort of aggressive manner in some way, and you're asking for trouble when you do that.
I mean, White's the idiotic one really, because I mean the first yellow he got was a bit soft, and then the second one,
he was fortunate to get booked, I think.
I don't know what he's thinking.
Yeah, it's an awful challenge. I mean, you could argue the second one's a straight red. I mean, it's just it was deliberately late. I think frustration's boiling over, but you've got to be better than that as a professional footballer, because playground kids do stuff like that. When you're paid to play and you know that you're going to be suspended for, I don't know what he'll be now. Is it 1 or 2 games for a
I think it'll do 1.
It's still not ideal, and it's left you guys with options that you don't necessarily have already.
Well, what I would say on that is, though, from Charlie White's perspective, it's taken a while to get going at Sunderland. He's actually been playing pretty well. I know you mentioned about Grigg in the week, played all right, but White's earned his opportunity. So now he's gone and blown that, because McNulty was in good form before he did his hamstring. And then he came back yesterday. Maguire scored a hat-trick last week. Griggs scored in the week, and he's been a bit better recently. So now he's going to miss a month of football really, because we haven't got a game next week, and then we're going to wait 2 weeks. I think actually we've got 3 games in a week, so he'll be back in the squad for the midweek game. But he's cost himself an opportunity, because the likelihood is the next game it'll be McNulty starting through the middle with Maguire sort of off him, and he's not going to be involved. And if Grigg influences that game, then he's going to find himself third choice, but in really all he needed to do is just get through the game, and he'd have started the next game. But now he's cost himself that opportunity. Or 9. I would have thought that would be rescinded. Just like you're saying, Chris, if he hadn't gone down clutching his face, he probably would have got away with it. But because he's, they are kind of quite hot on that now at the moment, aren't they, with the deception of the match official thing, since it's a relatively new.
It's cheating though, isn't it? It's like come on, let's just put a stop to it, because there shouldn't be any leeway with it. If you're seen to be in any way attempting to deceive a match official, then that's you suspended. There can't be leeway with it, because I'm so tired of it. It's quite embarrassing.
It winds me up so much.
It's embarrassing. These are grown men playing football, third tier football as well. Not being funny, but Premier League, you kind of expect it now and again. Third tier football, dear oh dear oh dear.
Do you see it a lot at Oxford and Oldham when teams come to you? Obviously, it's a home team. How do you feel as though the opposition teams manage the game against you?
It happened all day yesterday with Colchester basically attempting to win fouls off us. So we were playing right into them, but they were trying to get a little touch and hitting the floor as soon as they got touched, and that's how they managed the game. It's quite common, I've noticed.
It's modern football, isn't it? I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, Oxford and Coventry, to be fair, yesterday neither side were trying to manage the game at all, which is why it was such a brilliant game of football. But I think both managers were having some stern words with their sets of players for not doing a bit more what's now known as shithousery. You've got to try and see a game out. Yeah. And they didn't.
Oxford have been pretty good at that when they've played Sunderland in our place the last two times, and they've got a result, so we can't blame them really.
No, well, Jamie Mackey is the master of it. He really winds people up, kicks the ball away.
I'm all for a bit of shithouse football, but it's getting silly.
Well, there's a difference between game management, which is winning niggly fouls in the corner flag, which is what a lot of wingers do, isn't it? Or whatever, they wait, or the fullbacks always wait to be touched when they're clearing it and they get a free kick. This is normal stuff, but blatantly pretending you've been hit in the face by someone when in fact you were sort of tickled under the arm is it's getting silly. It's getting silly. But we must move on, because there's loads to go through, and one team that has impressed us and has continued to surprise a few, I think. No one was quite sure what to make of them, is Ipswich Town. They've come down, and I was expecting a little bit of a sort of bedding in period. We saw it with Blackburn. I think Blackburn, when they came down to this level, lost their first two games and they were quite poor. But Ipswich have not suffered any such sort of problems coming down to the third tier. In fact, they're thoroughly enjoying their football again. Maybe because they signed one of the best strikers in the lower leagues in James Norwood. He's been absolutely fantastic. I think
probably helps, yeah.
35 goals since the start of last season, if you include the playoffs, more than anyone in the top 4 tiers of English football. Absolutely fantastic player. Very aggressive striker. Doesn't do too badly in any sort of situation that when we've watched him play. But they're 2-0 up within 10 minutes. Probably the worst possible start Shrewsbury could have asked for against a side that are full of confidence, coming off the back of a 5-0 thrashing against, albeit a weakened Bolton side. But
Do you see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson tweeted him after the game as well, James Norwood?
Yeah, he's obviously got some high rollers in his contact book there. If I look at it, I think it's fantastic though. I have to say, I do like Ipswich. I like the fact that they've come down. The fans have been really supportive after what has been a terrible season in the Championship. They've stuck by Paul Lambert, who didn't really improve them when he came in last year, but I think what he did do is he improved the mood, and he was quite honest about what he wanted to achieve, and they've gone about doing that. They've had some injury problems as well, but I was looking at their squad yesterday, and we all know Caden Jackson from his time at Accrington was always going to be a very, very good player. I'm delighted that he started to show that. I think Cole Scouse has been underrated. I think he's been really good for them in midfield. Fantastic performances that he's put in. And Gareth, I'll ask your opinion on Ipswich. You played them away. You got a point there, but fair to say it's probably a bit fortunate.
I mean, we were really, really, really bad in the first half. And second half, when we changed the shape and we looked a lot better. And, I don't know whether I'm surprised or not surprised that they're at the top of the league at the moment, because it can go either way when a team comes down. But they did, when Paul Hurst went there to start last season, they did sign a few players, like decent players from League One, didn't they? So maybe now they're kind of well prepared, because they've got players who are dropping down into a league that they're probably more comfortable in, and they know it. And that experience, alongside the players that they've added, like Norwood, who's obviously coming up a division and is, banging form, as it has been for such a long time. Maybe that's just going to help them through this initial sort of adjustment period. And if they can if they can keep it going, the confidence will just grow. And, speaking, as a supporter team who spent, 2 or 3 years getting absolutely obliterated every week, no matter what league they were playing in, it really is refreshing when, you finally start to win some games. And it does change a lot. Changing that mentality is massive. I mean, we'll come on to talk about a few teams who are struggling a bit in League Two after being relegated from League One last season. And, I know it's a D3D4 pod, but if you look at, Huddersfield and how they're struggling as, coming down, you wouldn't be surprised to see them continue to drop again into League One the way they're playing at the moment.
Back-to-back relegations are in vogue, aren't they? I mean, it's something that's been more apparent. I look down this Ipswich squad, though. You've got Thomas Holy, who was in League One with Gillingham last season. Kane Vincent-Young, brilliant signing and played a really good move to win the penalty yesterday. He's coming up a division from Colchester. Wolfenden, who was on loan at Swindon last season in League Two, so he's really good. Chambers is full of experience. Really impressed with him. Danny Rowe in there, of course, who was hugely successful with Lincoln last season. We've just said James Norwood as well, and of course Caden Jackson, and Caden Jackson came off for John Nolan, who was part of Paul Hurst's very successful side at this level with Shrewsbury in 17-18. So it's a good squad, and it's a side that I think will do really well. I mean, yes, their depth is not particularly good. I think their managers talked about that, but a wonderful start for Ipswich, and Ipswich fans love to hear from you. How are you enjoying being back at this level? I know it's a bit of a wake-up call when you've been used to playing in the Championship, but I think I would assume that most of you guys are enjoying it, so I'd love to hear from you. Oxford 3, Coventry 3, two teams playing fantastic football, not defending well at all, to be fair, but defending's boring. Let's be honest, it's overrated defending. So, but going forward, I mean, Coventry City, very, very impressed. Zane Westbrook, I think his name is, who scored the free kick. Not just his free kick, though. His midfield play was excellent. Someone who probably needed to step up with Bayliss going. He's certainly done that. I was very, very impressed with the way he played the football around, stroking passes left, right and centre. How
much did Oxford pay Dabo?
Oh, well, yeah.
For his 2 goals.
I have no idea how he hit that so beautifully into the goal. I mean,
it's a great poacher's finish. Gave the keeper no chance.
It's a screamer of a volley. It's an absolutely perfect finish. But he's actually a very, very good signing, very good player, and he had an assist in their counter-attack goal for the second, which I thought had killed the game. Sort of 5-10 minutes. I think it was 10 minutes into the second half, and we hit the post. They break. A couple of passes later, it's in the box, and Matt Godden heads home to get, I think, his third since he's moved to the club. But both sides, to be fair, were technically very good. None of this hoofball. They were both playing it on the floor, both trying to break quickly, playing it out to their wide men, fullbacks bombing forward. If you want to see a spectacle, then I recommend you go and watch the highlights of this game, because it was fantastic stuff. Really good football. And a signing I thought that kind of went under the radar slightly, because Coventry have done some very good business this season, was that of O'Hare. I think he's like a little terrier in midfield. He was brilliant for brilliant for Carlisle last season. And when they signed him, I thought, oh, hello, this is a good signing. I mean, he took his goal fantastically well yesterday, and I think he'll have a big future in the game. He could play a big part in the season. Rose was very impressive, despite the fact they conceded 3. I thought Rose was put in an excellent performance. Michael Rose at the back. Morosi made some really good saves. Rob Dickey. Oxford continue to be slightly vulnerable in the air. I think we've conceded more headed goals than any side in the division, which is slightly worrying. But going forward, we've clicked a bit. Scoring a few goals now, even though we're back to square one with the striker issue, with Mackie still being our only fit striker after Matt Taylor got injured. But yeah, I think that is a game where they should change the rules. We talk about changing rules to protect football. I think you need to change rules to protect fans. There needs to be defibrillators in the stands if games of football are played like that, because I was struggling. I've got to watch my cholesterol if I'm going to watch football like this, because I was struggling with that. But brilliant result. Chris, Lincoln City 2-0 win over a very good Fleetwood side yesterday, and they continue their good start to the season.
They continue to really impress me, and I think Joey Barton's comments at the end of the game, where he sort of went, yeah, fair enough, Lincoln was superb today. He couldn't really say a bad thing about his Fleetwood side, and they were in what turned out to be a reasonably comfortable victory for Lincoln. They continue to just blow me away with their style of football, their levels of concentration, their abilities to, well, their sort of tactical abilities. They know how they're setting up into games, and they stick by it throughout the whole 90 minutes. It's a sign of really good coaching, and it's a sign of a team that's playing for each other.
Gave Everton a bit of a scare in the cup, didn't they? I mean, that very impressive. I mean, you look at Everton's sort of spend and the kind of players that they've got out on the pitch, and Lincoln at times were really pressing them hard and giving them a hard time. Delighted to see that.
And I love how seamlessly they've just moved from last season. They've not had a real hiccup. They lost a couple of games, but it wasn't hugely worrying for them. They've just kept playing the same quality of football they played all last season, but obviously they pretty much ran away with League Two at one point. And they've entered into League One, which is a strong League One this season. You've got heavyweights in the likes of Ipswich, Sunderland, Portsmouth, and Coventry showing real quality, Blackpool showing real quality, and they're holding their own.
They're more than holding their own. They're doing superbly well, and they've got people talk about their style. I mean, Danny Cow was telling me pre-season it's always evolving, and it's clearly done that. Jackie Payne and George Grant right up there in the key stats passing tables, right up there amongst the top players at this level. So they clearly are getting players on the ball, their key players on the ball, and making players like Tyler Walker, creating him chances. He took them brilliantly again yesterday. And he's on an excellent run of form as well. So fantastic performance from Lincoln. I have to say, Fleetwood, they're going to be right there as well, looking at the way they played, dominated the possession. I think had more shots, but at the end of the day,
Ched Evans missed a sitter, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, you probably would find some Lincoln fans not too uncomplimentary about how Fleetwood played. I thought they did really well, and I think they'll continue to do well this season. One team though that is really struggling and not doing well at all. We spoke to Chris Phillips last week. It goes from bad to worse with Rochdale thrashing them 3-0. I mean, it could have been a lot more, Chris. And this is a Dale side that, let's be honest, they've really started the season well. But if you're at home to a team like Rochdale, you'd expect to play better than Southend did, and it's looking increasingly like they look out of depth, really, which is a really strange thing to say about a team that have been in League One for several seasons.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'll start off by painfully saying I'm really impressed with Rochdale this season. They've got an incredibly strong squad, and actually looking down the team sheet, I wouldn't necessarily think that it's as strong as it is, but the quality of football they're playing is superb. The manager, whose name I can never properly say because it's got too many B's in it, is doing superbly well, setting up a team really, really well. But as you say, Southend, they're just not putting up the fight they need to, and at home they're still yet to get a point, and I think they're the only side in the EFL yet to get a point. You've got to be putting up more of a fight than that. You can't be being rolled over 3-0 at home to Rochdale. Even if Rochdale are putting in a performance like that, you want to see some fight from your home team. Snatch a scrappy goal, make a game of it, and they're not even doing that.
Maybe they're just trying to be kind and make Bolton not feel too lonely down there, because
they're doing their best to let Bolton catch up, aren't they?
Minus 13 goal difference. That is dreadful. It's such a bad stat to have at this stage of the season.
And you look at their squad, and it's not. I mean, it's one of the weakest squads in the league, but it's not minus 13 goal difference and 0 points after 6 games awful. No,
it's not. And I think tactically they're all over the place.
They're playing a tactic.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. That's the problem. They're not sticking with anything. They're not sticking with a system, a team, and I don't know. It's looking bleak already. I think we don't advocate sacking managers too often, but I don't realistically see how this run can continue much longer without their chairman having to act, because something's got to change, because otherwise
there's 1 or 2 more games I think you've got to give him, and if he's not got, I think it needs to be a win at this point. You've got to seriously ask questions, because if you leave it much longer than that, you're fighting a huge battle.
Have they had a large turnover of players at Southend? Do you
Not
know?
in particular. I mean, no. I mean, their recruitment though has to be said as underwhelming slightly.
I mean, they were fortunate to stay up last season, and they've not really strengthened on that.
Because maybe it's just a case of, they were struggling with power, weren't they, before Kevin Bond came in. They only won 1 in 12 or something under power before I think Bond came in or something ridiculous like that, and they've sort of rolled the dice and thought, well, we've got to do something. Maybe it's just one of those situations where the rot set in, especially if you haven't had a high turnover of players and you haven't freshened it up. It might just be a case of, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't change managers because Kevin Bond might not be the right person to do that job, but it might just be one of those things where somebody else comes in and even they can't turn it around unless they really freshen up the group of players somehow, because I know they had a lot of injuries last season, didn't they, as well? And I think that
terrible
was
injury problems, yeah.
But once that rot sets in mentally, in Rochdale, you've got to say, when we played them earlier this season, very surprising compared to the way they played last season. And I think we played them in Brian Barry Murphy's first game in charge, actually. Last year, it may have been one of his first couple anyway. And looking at them then, and looking at them now, it's quite interesting because obviously he must have been pragmatic at the end of last season. Thought, look, we've just got to try and do something now, just to try and change it up a bit, to try and keep them up. And then this year, it's almost like he's gone, well, this is a very specific way I want to play. And against us, they did keep the ball. It wasn't exactly, that obviously scored a great goal yesterday by keeping the ball. They weren't exactly zipping it about, but it was a good move. But they seem to want to keep on it and try and sort of keep the ball in their half. And then when the opportunity comes, try and get forward and create opportunities, which is how they scored against us. But yeah, he's obviously done a really good job there, because the identity of the team we played last season compared to the one this year is, it's miles apart. So yeah, he's obviously, I don't know if he's regarded as sort of a bright young thing in game. I know the one thing about Brian Barry Murphy, is that he was the scorer of the last goal that we conceded under Niall Quinn's very short tenure when we got beaten up Bury 2-0 in the League Cup, and then Roy Keane took over the next day. So obviously it just goes to show how things can change in football, because Bury don't exist anymore, unfortunately, and we're in League One now, and that was on our surge of the Premier League, so it's a cyclical thing, isn't it? It's funny, but he's done really well to change it around in that short space of time. And
recruitment's been good. Reece Norrington-Davies has really impressed me. Dooley in midfield looks excellent. McNulty's kind of like a key player at the back, and O'Connell coming in there. He's a good player. I really like him. He's decent on the ball in possession, and it's how they want to play. And obviously 100th league goal for Rochdale for Ian Henderson. So yeah,
I didn't realise he scored that much.
Yeah. Just a fantastic player, isn't he? Just the kind of player everyone wants. Accrington, though, they picked up an important 2-1 victory over MK Dons. MK Dons had a fairly solid start to their return at this level, but Accrington will take that all day long. They really were desperate to get a win. Wickham and Wimbledon played out a 0-0. Wimbledon's worst start in their league football campaign. I think it's 6 games now, 2 points on the board, so not been ideal and not been that surprising, to be honest. The sort of quality in their squad is clearly, compared to others, and the budget that they have to work with is a challenge. Blackpool prove again how solid they are. I compared them to some sort of sausage last week and got ridiculed.
The black pudding of sausage.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, they are incredibly hard to beat. It's an analogy of.
It keeps me awake at night trying to figure that out.
Oh dear, you need to read more literature if that's the case. But I have to say though, Blackpool continue to be impressive, very solid performance. Portsmouth, one place above Oxford, and they're in 18th. I mean, it's so early. I still really like Portsmouth, and I have to say I'm very pleased to see that their new signing, Marcus Harness, is doing superbly well, and I knew he would. And if he can stay in that form, and they can just see a game out, or get Marquis scoring the kind of goals he did at Doncaster, they'll be fine. Burton, I thought they slightly robbed Bristol Rovers yesterday. I mean, it was a very even game by all accounts. but Lucas Akins, I still think, is one of the most underrated players at this level. Could clearly still play at the Championship as a fantastic player. Scored that great goal, and then obviously the second was on the breakaway. But it's been a mixed start to the season for Bristol Rovers. I think they'll be happy that they've been picking up some points recently, but it's a little bit of a bump on the road. Going to Burton's never easy. Gillingham absolutely thrashed Bolton. No surprises there, Bolton. Really do need to recruit them. Monday deadline is coming quite quickly, though I would imagine, I'm not sure when the free agent deadline closes, but they probably will have some targets who are unattached who they will bring in, so they indeed should be all right. And Rotherham drew 1-1 with Tranmere. Rotherham always like to leave it late to concede a goal. They did it in midweek against Sheffield Wednesday.
Tranmere have got to win the award for Limbs of the Week, though.
Did you see the stewards?
Yeah.
Two of them absolutely flattened. Yeah, there was an old steward at Ox actually who was flattened by Coventry fans, but this sort of like was a checkmate to that one. I mean, both of them absolutely floored by the onrushing. If you haven't seen it, go and have a watch of the crowd rushing forward at the end of the game. And there's some lady was just standing there absolutely flying. I shouldn't laugh.
It's quite funny though.
It's quite funny.
Maybe. Do you think Mike Dean was in the mix in that one?
He probably led the charge.
Yeah, Max Power's dad's a massive Tranmere fan as well. Maybe he was in there as well. He wasn't at the game yesterday. So him and Mike Dean taking out the stewards, maybe, who knows?
I wonder if he gave himself a booking for over celebration.
I'd love to shake Max Power's dad's hand just for naming his son Max.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an amazing name. I'm sure Max's son's called Max as well. I could be talking rubbish, but I hope it is.
Oh dear.
It's a fantastic name, and one that wasn't that the one on The Simpsons? It just has been.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you
go. For years, people thought he was named after him, but obviously the timelines don't line up. So, you'd like to think it was.
Fantastic stuff. Let's jump down into League Two because there's loads of great stuff happening in this division this week.
League Two.
We'll jump straight into probably the slightly surprising result that saw Northampton beat high-flying Plymouth. Very good to see Keith Curle's side finally get a win. I mean, some of their fans have not been particularly pleased with the way he's set them up or playing football, but you can't argue with a home victory over an Argyle side that looked so good in the game against Walsall last week. I mean, they're not going to win them all. I think Plymouth fans will probably have a little bit of a bump back down to earth with this result because it's kind of a typical contrast of styles, Northampton versus Argyle. You've got Keith Curle, who's a bit more robust. He's got big forwards, so he tends to hit the ball long too. I mean, the key player for Northampton is no surprise that it's Nicky Adams. Everything that they do ticks around him and his crosses and his ability from set plays. A really good player. Obviously, friend of the pod, been on here with us a couple of times. And yeah, I'm really impressed with that performance, Chris, because to be honest, I didn't see Northampton getting a result against Argyle, or at least not a win.
No, I was exactly the same, and I really like this Plymouth side. So to see them lose to Northampton, who I don't think either of us have been particularly impressed at all with them in their first few games. But Keith Curle's stuck by he's stuck with what he's trying to instill in his team, and it's proved effective. And perhaps it's what we saw a little bit with Wickham, I think, last season, where they were just very good at countering the sort of fluid football that other sides play. And
10 shots on target they had yesterday, which for them, who have been struggling to sort of get the results, that's an impressive stat, really.
Oh, excellent, yeah, and they've taken their chance. Well, they've been quite effective actually with the shots they've taken, because that's more than 50% of their shots on target.
Yeah.
Which, when you compare against Plymouth, they only had 2 shots on target out of their 14 shots. But yeah, I think they've counteracted what Plymouth are trying to do, not really let them play their game, and grab 3 goals really well.
Yeah, fantastic performance. So I'd be interested to hear again from you, Northampton fans, of what you've made of the start, because it's not been that smooth, let's be honest. Fortunate win at Swindon with the offside goal. I was impressed with Williams' finishing today, because he's missed a couple where it's clear that he shouldn't have, and Andy Williams has shown confidence and ability to put the ball in the net yesterday. So, and they've got, they're well supported club, 5,500 there. I mean, I think probably 1,000 of those were Argyle fans, but still, that's not bad for a team that have had a couple of seasons of real struggle. We have to give Exeter their dues. A 1-0 win over Mansfield. Mansfield fan Carl always gives me an update, and it's really nice to see that he is fairly supportive of John Dempster, despite the fact that there are people calling for his head. I can see why, but come on, he's had a real bad injury crisis to start the season. A lot of the games that they've played have not been bad. I mean, in this one they were, to be honest, soundly beaten, despite the 1-0 scoreline. It was easy, it was comfortable. Exeter were unlucky not to increase their lead. I
suppose what's worrying for Mansfield is the teams they've played against. Not to be disrespectful, but some of the weaker sides in the league. They've drawn with Morecambe, they've lost to Leyton Orient, they've drawn with Stevenage. Exeter, don't get me wrong, I think they'll be right up there at the end of the season, but there's 3 or 4 games they've had this season where they really should have been putting points on the board.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to be too harsh on a manager that's taken over after a playoff hangover. You do get that occasionally. You also, I think there's been a lot of criticism of Logan, and I'd say Olejnik is probably a better keeper. His stats were fantastic before he got injured, but nevertheless, I don't think scapegoating the keeper is the issue here. They've had some bad discipline. I mean, a keeper can only do as much as is given, and the keepers that statistically do best tend to have a good defence in front of them as well. Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Crewe.
Wow.
Apart from the kits in this game, which were dreadful. Dreadful contrast.
Who allowed that?
Yeah, who allowed Bradford to have that kit in the first place?
They would have been better in their home kit, and that wouldn't have been great. But
yeah, it was. I don't know. Did you see the highlights of this, Gareth? The Bradford away kit.
Well, last year when we played Bradford, we had to wear our third kit, which is kind of light blue, even though our away kit was black and our home kit's red and white. So there must be something in the colour palette at Bradford that means that people can't just wear the normal kit, even though the alternative, I would say a light blue kit would probably clash more with their maroon and yellow than the other options we had. And then yesterday, obviously, it was absolutely ridiculous. But
why would you? You're at Bradford, you're designing your away kit. Why would you pick something that colour-wise is so similar to your home kit?
Yeah, that's a point I hadn't even thought of. I just thought they'd probably seen those guys walking up and down the railway line at night in those sort of luminous jackets and thought, that looks good. That'd be a good football kit. It isn't. It's terrible. Honestly, that is the worst. One of the worst. We didn't do a away kit.
Just have a white kit or something. It's never going to clash. You're never going to have a clash with your.
They've got one, haven't they? They've actually got their away kit. It's really nice.
Why did they not wear it?
They've got a really top quality away kit. I'm sure I saw them release it, and it's a white kit, harking back to one of the sort of retro designs of maybe the 90s or the 80s or something. And yet they choose to wear something that looks like luminous radioactive blancmange vomit. It's awful, really terrible kit. And for that reason and that reason alone, you deserve to get beaten. And you were. But Crewe, fantastic performance from their young players. Their problem is they don't always show a clinical edge, but they scored two good goals yesterday, and they'll be delighted to continue their strong start to the season. David Artell, he knows he's got a good squad there. I think he's quite modest about it, quite reserved, doesn't say too much. A lot of managers like Gabriele Cioffi's keep saying this at Crawley, aiming for the 50 points, and then we'll worry about where we can finish. But they'll be quietly confident at Crewe that this is a squad that won't need to be worrying about picking up enough points. I mean, only one goes down this season, and there are a lot of clubs who are going to be below Crewe this year in the league. Fantastic performance, great young players. Lowry again.
I'm sure Will Jääskeläinen once complimented one of my performances in net when he played against me.
Did he? There you go.
There you go, yeah.
So your claim to fame. You should put that on your Twitter bio.
That's my one claim to fame.
That's got to be worth it. That's got to be worth it. I'll check your LinkedIn account later today, and that will be like the quote at the top. Brilliant stuff. Been quite impressed with Newport County. We knew they'd go on and have a good season because they got Mike Flynn as their manager, and they are very tough to beat, and so they proved again. Not
well, they had a lot of help in this game from the goalkeeper.
Yeah, Forest Green and goalkeepers.
I mean, what? Why was he doing that? I mean, what was he doing for the goal? What was he doing for the sending off? And the substitute keeper didn't cover himself in glory for their second goal either, I didn't think.
No, they've got Adam Smith. I don't know why Adam Smith's not being picked. Maybe there's something that we're not aware of.
He brought a sausage roll in one day,
Yeah, I don't get it though, because I know Mark Cooper. I mean, he plays a great style. He likes his teams to play out from the back. And let's be fair to this keeper. What a performance he put in against Bournemouth in the League Cup in midweek. But it was a nightmare performance from him.
It's my old trick of having a superb game one week and then coming out the next week and conceding 7 or something.
Yeah, it was bad. But let's give Newport their dues, though. I mean, they're so difficult to beat. They took their chances in this one. They've started the season really well. I thought they were actually quite good against West Ham. Podrick Allen missed a really good chance. But no, you can if you're going to get games where you're going to be given a hand, then they'll take that every day of the week. They've started really, really well, second in the table. We're looking at the top three. I can't say I'm hugely surprised. I mean, Exeter was unsure if they'd do this well, but they've got a good squad. Matt Taylor, I think, is an intelligent manager, so not overly surprised. One team that has surprised me a little bit, I have to say, is Grimsby. I did worry about them in pre-season about how much creativity they had, but
they've got bags of it.
They're playing really well. The 4-3-3 is playing.
Yeah,
can't deny that
like
James
that, yeah.
Hansen has been absolutely amazing. What a key player he has been
I think
since
it's on
arriving.
Quest. He's got the same number of goals this season as he scored all last season.
Yeah, well, he's been involved in 7 goals in his 6 league appearances this season, so he's got 5 goals, 2 assists. That's as many as in his previous 47 league games during spells with 3 clubs, Sheffield United, Bury and AFC Wimbledon. So, yes, you could say it's a good start. And fantastic to see that they've got a set tactic. It's working. Teams aren't able to defend against it because actually, although Walsall have had a poor start, they are fairly solid. They just don't have anything going forward. And they took the lead in this one. And Grimsby came back in impressive fashion. And I have to say, I hope it continues. I really like this team. I really like the fact, and great to see Elliot Whitehouse back playing football. I think they really missed him last season. And Luke Waterfall's coming. He started his career there pretty well, pretty solid. I mean, he was always going to be good at this level. Walsall bring in Rory Gaffney. That's their signing to change this up, and I think he's a good player. He did very well at Bristol Rovers. I think Salford have probably got so many options they decided that they could afford to let one go, and obviously Darrell Clark with the Bristol Rovers link, it makes sense. Is he though going to be enough to change their fortunes?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure with Walsall. They've not shown enough so far. They've only got the 1 win. They need to start scoring more. Simple as you touched on, their defensive setup's not too bad, but they're not creating enough chances, let alone scoring them. And so perhaps a more prudent signing would be a creative midfielder.
Yeah, I think they're looking to get in a winger by Monday, because Dale Clark did say 2 would definitely be joining. But I often wonder how much you can put on one player coming in and making those changes, because at this level it's quite difficult to sign real sort of standout quality. I mean, Adam Hamill, he's available because he's fallen out with Scunthorpe, who continue to be dreadful. I mean, a 1-0 defeat at home to Carlisle, perhaps it is a bit unfair on them in terms of the final score. He could have got something from this game. But Gareth, you were saying this about teams with double relegations, that they're really struggling, aren't they?
Yeah, and also you look at it, Bradford have had a decent start this season, and they kind of knew that the division that they were going to be in for a long while last year, and then over the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks of the season, there was still another 10, 11 teams who were still in the mix to get relegated. And you look at it there with, Walsall struggling at the start of the season, Scunthorpe being dreadful. And then, you just wonder the psychological effects that, maybe the back end of last season had where, and especially the last day of the season, obviously, because Scunthorpe went to Plymouth, didn't they, on the last day? Am I right in that?
I'm not sure that was quite the last day. I think that was the penultimate game.
Was it? Yeah, and there's some strange stuff going on there, and it must be, Bradford are probably thinking, right, this is what we got to achieve next season, or this is what we got to achieve in the squad in the summer, whereas the other teams are probably a little bit kind of neither here nor there, and then they've dropped. I mean, look at the top of the table. I know we've talked about Newport, and obviously Newport Mansfield played in the playoffs, didn't they, last season, and Mansfield are probably scratching their heads a little bit, thinking, well, we missed out on automatic promotion on the last day of the season, and then failed in the playoffs, and then they're looking at what's happened with Bury, which is awful, but they might be thinking, well, they're finishing the top three, and like we could have been promoted, and their season could have been very different, and it just goes to show that the psychological sort of issues that some of these clubs and players may be having in dealing with the situation that they're finding themselves in. And I didn't think Walsall were too bad when we played them last season, and then I watched them on the telly against Barnsley, and they were the better team by a mile. And then
they were very good in that game.
And then now, you drop, you've got to make all those changes, and it's just finding that right mix to change your mentality again. And early doors, it doesn't seem that Scunthorpe as well. Bringing in Paul Hurst, who everyone was waxing lyrical about 18 months ago. He was the next big thing. There was some Sunderland fans saying we should try and get him in, all this kind of stuff. And then he goes to Ipswich, doesn't do so well. Now he finds himself the very bottom team in the Football League, manager of that side, who really they should be doing a lot better. You'd assume, based on the fact that they dropped last season, they should have some quality in that squad to compete.
They've got. I look at their squad, and I think Junior Brown's a good signing that they just made from Coventry, but Cole Clough obviously coming back from long-term injury. If he gets himself back to the levels he was before he got injured, then they'll have one of the best players at this level. He's fantastic. Abu Issa is a good player. George Miller on loan. They've started to bring in a couple of players. Jamie Proctor, it'll be interesting to see how he comes in. Van Veen's been injured, and I think that's a big thing because he's one of their key players. But, Regan Slater, Matty Lund, these are good players.
Yeah, but again, it's that mentality thing, isn't it? It has to be that. And I bet, Hurst will be scratching his head, won't he, thinking, how we're coming here, and this has happened after he had a terrible time at Ipswich, and then he's probably thinking, I need to pick my next job. Well, and he's probably looked at that and gone, well, I'd probably look at the squad like you're saying, you know more about it than me. If they've got a good group of players there, he's probably thinking, yeah, I can get these promoted and then hopefully turn things around and get on a bit of a roll again. And it's obviously gone exactly the opposite way. This is what it may be, sort of doing a bit of soul searching, wondering, well, how am I going to turn this around?
Yeah, and they were beaten by a Carlisle side that have by no means been that good this season. They've struggled. I saw them play against Cheltenham, and they were pretty woeful in that game. But a very important win for them to get themselves moving back in the right direction, because it was always going to be a bit scrappy. The game quality was frankly dreadful, and I think the fans alluded to it. But a win is a win, and at this level, sometimes you have to scrap them out. Cambridge went to Port Vale and lost 1-0. That is a gimme with Cambridge's recent record at Vale Park. But I think John Askey's doing a very good, tidy job. Considering that they are sort of in a huge period of transition at the club, and a steady season needed for Port Vale, a bit of stability needed for the club to move them in the right direction. Forest Green, as we touched on, they got beaten, which I was slightly surprised with how they've started the season. I thought they'd be slightly better, perhaps. Crawley, though, have done really well. What a late win. Ollie Palmer on the score sheet again. It was a really boring, poor first half, but I think Crawley pushed a little bit more after the break, and they'll be delighted. Obviously, I saw them beat Norwich in midweek in that cup game, and they're going about their business really well. Very, very important performance to keep winning at home, especially, and they'll be delighted with that. Salford and Leyton Orient, rivals from last season, finished 1-1. I think Orient will be very pleased with that, considering the circumstances going into the last few minutes. A very unfortunate own goal. But two sides that I think will be happy generally with their starts to life in the league. Leyton Orient, I think, have got a good squad. They've been a bit sloppy at the back, but they'll be pleased. And I have to say I'm very pleased with Stevenage to see them score. Okay, they didn't get the result they probably wanted, but they've had, if people aren't aware, Stevenage have had one of the worst injury problems that I have seen at a team at this level of the season. I mean, you're missing, I think, both key centre-backs from last season. You're missing wingers, midfielders, strikers have been out. They've had a very young, I mean, the other week they put in, I think, 2 centre-backs who are under the age of 20 for their debuts. They've really been having to call upon youth players. They've had midfielders subbing in at centre-back as well. So to get, for them to get a goal is important. For them to get a point on the board is important. And I think what you'll look at for Stevenage is once they get their players back, they're certainly playing and fighting. They might start to pick up a few wins, because I don't think it's fair to judge them just yet based on the fact that they've had such problems with injury.
It was an amazing hit for the second one as well, wasn't it?
Gonna say, what a goal.
Yeah, he's been a very impressive player. I mean, he was linked. I don't know if this had any sort of traction to it, but he was linked with Arsenal, I heard, Luther Wilding at some point.
Oh, they do that. They do that at Arsenal. They just sign random lower league players or non-league players and then stick them in the reserve team and they disappear.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't. I don't know who doesn't, because he's been performing really, really well. He's been one of their standout performers this season already, despite the issues that they've had with injury. He's been superb. And yeah, great goal. Great goal for a player that has gone from strength to strength under Dino Marmari since he's joined the side. I think he came from I can't remember who it was, not non-league outfit. Very impressive performance. Before we hit Oldham, let's go and see how your ex-manager is doing at Swindon, because a 3-1 win yesterday. Jerry Yates and Owen Doyle in brilliant scoring form. This is a Swindon side that should be right up there, Chris.
Wellens is doing exactly what I said he'd do at Swindon, and he's playing exciting football and he's getting results. He's got Doyle playing like he got Doyle playing at Oldham before his injury. I mean, it says a lot when Wellens comes out after the game yesterday and says that's a poor performance. I think that says everything. He's demanding, but he plays exciting football. You're not just going to go to a game and win. You're going to go to a game, enjoy it, and watch your team win. And there's a lot to be said for that. I don't think we have that enough in the lower leagues at times. I'm not sure what else there is to say about Swindon. They play superb football, and I'm glad to see them doing well for it.
Yeah, they've got some very good players. Danny Rose back in the midfield yesterday. He's had some injury problems, so that's nice to see. The fact that they can change it up a little bit. Woolery was not starting. Adam May was not starting. I think they've got Doherty obviously suspended, so he's a key player.
They've got cracking depth.
They have, yeah, because I think Zeki Fries is also injured, and yet Landolo came in and did well. They've also got Reed, who can play in that position. Isgrove has been impressive so far this season. Conroy and Baudry, I think, have been excellent at the back. Been very impressive, Baudry, particularly because I think he was unlucky not to get another contract perhaps at MK Dons. And obviously your favourite, Mr. Lydon in midfield. Jordan Lydon's been superb.
He was apparently so close to signing for us as well.
Yeah, that's a real shame.
He'd been seen at the stadium in Latics gear and then got an offer in from Swindon.
Yep, and he's gone and been probably one of their most impressive players so far in the opening games of the season. You lost though, Chris, at home yesterday, 1-0.
Who needs Jordan Lydon when you've got Christopher Missilou not doing anything?
Yeah, it's a strange. He's playing. He was one of your better players last season at times. Really dynamic.
I don't know what's going on with him. I think it's an instruction on how to play. Who that instruction is coming from is another question. But it's bizarre. We're playing a midfield sort of. I'm still not entirely sure what tactic we're trying to play. I think we're trying to play a 4-2-3-1. We've been playing Mohamed Silla and Christopher Missilou in a sort of holding two almost. Silla looks really good, but Christopher Missilou, he's sort of almost in a similar mould. He's there to break up play, and I don't think we need two players doing that. What we had under Wellens was we had Usman Fain and Jack Byrne. Usman Fain breaking up play, who then passed it to Jack Byrne to have a bit of creative football, and we're not doing that well. Chris Eagles had a good game. Mohamed Mouche seems to have the same problem that every single game he just sort of disappears, has a shot every now and then disappears and throws a tantrum about something. And we're playing Scott Wilson up front on his own, and I don't get why you would ever play Scott Wilson up front on his own.
No, it doesn't make sense. But you've got a lot of players, but
28, I think, in the squad.
How many of those are standout players, though? How many of those players would get into other sides at this level?
I think someone put a list together of the players they keep, and I agreed with it, and I think there was about 8. 7 or 8. You could maybe make an argument to keep Missilou on top of that. But I won't keep most of the players in that side. They're not good enough. We keep signing non-league players or non-league caliber players from European leagues, and they're just not good enough. We've signed a player during the week, McHale. He's 23. Oldham's his 12th club.
That's terrible.
and the other 11 were non-league pretty much. I think he had a bit of time at Manchester City, and then played in the non-league and wasn't highly rated in non-league.
Yeah, great signing. Top work.
And so, I mean, something stinks at the club. Some of the signings we're bringing in are utterly bizarre.
Yeah, it does. And you haven't started well at all. So it's.
I'm glad there's only one relegation spot.
Yeah, that could be your saving grace for this season. But you've got to look at it and think you've got to have one team that has a worse season than you guys, and
Scunthorpe are doing their best.
They are.
So
you feel with their squad. You feel with their squad though they might improve at some point. That's the worry. You need to start scoring some goals as well. I mean,
when you're playing, Scott Wilson's an excellent striker. This Segbe Azangpo we've got in looks like a real handful, but you need a big striker to hold up the play. It's what was happening so well with Chris O'Grady playing alongside Sam Sturridge at the start of last season. He was holding up the play, getting a flick on, and Sturridge was scoring. And I can't help but think that if you had him, who is still contracted at the club, he's not got a squad number, but he is contracted at the club. If you had him or a similar style player that isn't Urko Vera, because he's the worst footballer on the planet, playing alongside one of these strikers, we'd be doing quite well.
Have to wait and see how that does. A good away performance from Colchester in that, game managed it, got the goal. Anyone particularly stand out for you on their side?
Newble, as always. He knows how to play this league so well. I think Colchester had a very much typical away performance where they were on the back foot in the first half, and I think they were probably second best for most of that half, certainly the first 30 minutes. But second half they managed to gain well. They got the goal on the brink of half time, and they held on it. They tried to, they hit the crossbar again in the second half. They were trying to get a second just to make it a bit more comfortable, but they stopped us playing our game. They were winning niggly fouls, and it's what you do on the road, especially when you're so far from home.
It's a good win on the road for Colchester. So, yeah, early days still. We don't look at the league tables on this podcast really until you get to about 10 games. I mean, you can glance at it just to gauge form and stuff, but I still think at this level, 6 games in, it's a little bit meaningless. We have seen sides have great starts and really struggle. So we'll skip over that for now, but I hope you've enjoyed the pod. Gareth, really pleased to have you on. Thank you for making your D3D4 debut.
No worries. Thank you very much for asking me.
No problem at all. Chris, thank you for putting yourself through another traumatic week of talking about Oldham.
Yeah, it's great.
And Oxford United, thank you for reducing my life expectancy by a decade yesterday. Yeah, and Coventry, you played your part. Right, so we'll be back next week. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Until then, though, take care, everyone. Goodbye.